The soft hum of fluorescent lights filled the long corridor of Whitmore Medical Center. Dr. Sarah Mitchell walked slowly down the polished hallway, her heels clicking against the spotless floor. She paused outside room 304, watching through the small window as a man knelt beside a hospital bed. Marcus Reed had been coming to this room every day for 3 months. He wasn't a doctor or a nurse. He was the night janitor, a quiet man in his 40s who cleaned these halls after everyone else had gone home. But something had drawn him to this particular room, to this particular little girl who lay silent in her bed. Emma Whitmore was 6 years old. Her blonde hair spread across the white pillow like spun gold, and her blue eyes stared at the ceiling without seeing. She hadn't spoken a single word since the accident that took her parents. The trauma had locked her voice away somewhere deep inside, and no amount of therapy or medicine had been able to bring it back. Richard Whitmore, Emma's grandfather and the CEO of Whitmore Industries, sat in the corner chair. His expensive suit was wrinkled from sleeping in uncomfortable positions. His usually perfect gray hair was disheveled, and his eyes were red with exhaustion and worry. He had tried everything. The best doctors, the most expensive treatments, specialists from around the world. Nothing had worked. Marcus finished organizing his cleaning supplies and approached the bed quietly. He didn't speak at first. He never did. Instead, he simply sat down in the chair next to Emma and pulled out a small wooden box from his pocket. Inside the box were tiny carved animals. A rabbit, a fox, a wise old owl. Marcus had made them himself during his breaks, whittling away at pieces of wood with a small knife his father had given him years ago. He placed the rabbit on the blanket near Emma's hand. "This little rabbit," Marcus said softly, his voice barely above a whisper, "she lived in a beautiful garden. But one day, she forgot how to hop. All the other animals tried to help her remember, but nothing worked." Emma's eyes moved slightly. It was the first time she had looked at anything in weeks. Richard watched from his chair, hardly daring to breathe. He had seen dozens of therapists try to reach his granddaughter. Psychologists with impressive degrees, specialists with years of experience. None of them had gotten even this small response. Marcus continued his story, moving the little rabbit across the blanket. The rabbit felt very lonely. She wanted to hop and play with her friends, but she had forgotten how. Then one day, a kind fox came to visit. He placed the fox figure next to the rabbit. Emma's fingers twitched slightly, as if she wanted to touch the carved animals. The fox didn't try to make the rabbit hop right away. Instead, he just sat with her. Day after day, he would come and sit quietly in the garden. He would tell her about the clouds in the sky, and the way the flowers smelled after it rained. As the nights passed, Marcus returned again and again. He would clean the room thoroughly, then sit beside Emma's bed with his wooden animals. He told simple stories about friendship and kindness, about being scared and finding courage again. Dr. Mitchell began to notice changes. Small ones at first. Emma's breathing became more relaxed when Marcus was in the room. She would turn her head slightly when he spoke. Once, the doctor could have sworn she saw the ghost of a smile cross the little girl's face. Richard watched it all with growing amazement and desperation. This janitor, this simple man with his homemade toys, was reaching his granddaughter in ways that no one else had managed. "Please," Richard said one night, his voice breaking. He approached Marcus as the janitor was preparing to leave. "I don't understand what you're doing, but it's working. Emma responds to you. If you can teach her to speak again, I'll give you everything. Money, a house, whatever you want. Just please, help her find her voice." Marcus looked at the desperate grandfather with kind eyes. "Mr. Whitmore," he said gently, "I don't want your money. I just want to help Emma." "But why?" Richard asked, tears forming in his eyes. "Why do you care so much about my granddaughter?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his wallet and pulled out a faded photograph. It showed a young girl with bright eyes and a wide smile. She looked to be about Emma's age. "This was my daughter, Lucy," Marcus said softly. "She was in an accident 5 years ago. I sat by her bedside for months, just like you're doing now. I read to her, I sang to her, I told her stories. But she never woke up." Richard stared at the photograph, understanding flooding his features. "I became a janitor here because I wanted to be around children who might get better. Children who still had a chance. When I saw Emma, saw how quiet and scared she was, I remembered what it felt like to want so desperately to reach someone you love. The two men stood in silence for a moment, connected by their shared pain and hope. Over the following weeks, Marcus continued his gentle work with Emma. He brought new carved animals, a gentle deer, a playful squirrel, a brave little mouse. Each one came with a story, a lesson about overcoming fear and finding strength. Then one evening, something magical happened. Emma was holding the wooden rabbit, turning it over in her small hands. Marcus was telling a story about how the rabbit learned to trust again when Emma's lips moved. "Rabbit," she whispered. The word was so quiet that Marcus almost thought he had imagined it. But then Emma looked directly at him, her blue eyes clear and focused for the first time in months. "The rabbit is sad," she said, her voice like a tiny bell. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. "Yes, sweetheart. The rabbit was very sad. But she's getting better now." Richard rushed to the bedside, hardly believing what he was hearing. His granddaughter was speaking. After months of silence, she was finally speaking. "Grandpa," Emma said, reaching for Richard's hand. "I had scary dreams. But Marcus tells good stories. They help me remember the happy things." Richard knelt beside the bed, gathering his granddaughter into his arms. "Oh, Emma, we missed you so much." Dr. Mitchell, who had been called in to witness this breakthrough, watched with professional amazement and personal joy. In all her years of medicine, she had rarely seen such a complete transformation. As the weeks passed, Emma continued to improve. She began speaking more each day, sharing her thoughts and feelings with the doctors and nurses. The trauma was still there, but she was learning to live with it, to move beyond it. Richard kept his promise to Marcus, though not in the way he had originally intended. He didn't give him money or material things. Instead, he created a new position at the hospital, a therapeutic aide who would work with children who had experienced trauma. Marcus would receive proper training and a good salary, but more importantly, he would be able to continue the work he had discovered he was meant to do. "You gave me back my granddaughter," Richard said on the day Marcus started his new job. "How can I ever thank you enough?" Marcus smiled, watching Emma play with her wooden animals in the hospital's playroom. She was laughing now, a sound more beautiful than any music. "You don't need to thank me," Marcus said. "Emma taught me something too. She showed me that sometimes healing happens not through expensive treatments or fancy degrees, but through simple kindness and patience. Through sitting with someone in their darkness until they're ready to see the light again." Emma looked up from her toys and ran to Marcus, hugging his legs tightly. "Will you tell me another story about the rabbit?" she asked. "Of course," Marcus said, lifting her up. "I have lots more stories to tell." As they walked down the hospital corridor together, Richard following behind with a heart full of gratitude, the late afternoon sun streamed through the windows, casting everything in a warm, golden light. Sometimes the most profound healing came from the most unexpected places, from people who understood that the greatest gift you can give someone is simply showing up, again and again, with patience and love. Emma's voice had returned, but more than that, her spirit had been restored by the gentle persistence of a janitor who knew what it meant to hope against hope, and who had found his own healing in helping others find theirs.